Man, now Ozzy's gone. Oh, rest in peace to the Prince of Darkness, Ozzy Osbourne, who died at 76. I've known him since Black Sabbath. You youngins probably know him best from the Osbournes with his family, where he was a cuddly, kind of out of it Ozzy Osbourne. Ozzy's been battling Parkinson's for the past few years. Since 2019, he was diagnosed. And he had a fall back in 2019. He's been dealing with those injuries since then. He leaves behind his second wife, Sharon Osbourne, and his three children with her. Amy, that we never saw in the Osbournes, Jack and Kelly. But Ozzy also had three other kids. He was married before. His first wife, Thelma. He had two kids with her, Jessica and Lewis. And he adopted her son that she had from a previous relationship, Elliot. So all in all, Ozzy had 6 kids, but most people just know Jack and Kelly. Gotta be hard on all his kids, but especially Sharon, Jack, Kelly, and Amy, because they got the better version of their father, like in all situations. Because Ozzy even said, like, for the first marriage and his older kids, he was a bad dad. He was focused on Black Sabbath. He was on the road a lot. He did a lot of drugs. He just wasn't a great dad. So let's go back. So I am one of those black dudes who love heavy metal. Listen, man, I love a Drake and a Kendrick. I love Public Enemy, De La Soul. I love me Jodeci, Marvin Gaye, Music Soul Child. But I'm one of those dudes that also love a heavy metal. And Black Sabbath was the beginning of heavy metal. And they was a strong foursome too, man. You had Tony. Tony was the architect. Those hard guitar riffs, that was Tony. So he's basically the sound of the group. Bill, drummer, he brought in the jazz element of drumming into the group. And then the fantastic thing I love about the drummers, the rock drummers of the 60s, is a lot of them had a jazz background. Like Charlie Watts of the Rolling Stones was a jazz drummer. But you'll never hear it because you think, oh, there's no jazz. Where's jazz? I'm telling you. That's the one thing I love about those bands back in the day that you don't hear today, is that sometimes kids just focus on one. Just, I'm just going to be a rock drummer. But if you listen to those bands, even if you listen to something like Parliament, where there's different big band elements in Parliament, I just miss the fact that the musicians back then had a broad spectrum when it comes to music. So Bill brought the jazz element into the drumming into Black Sabbath. And then you have Geezer. Geezer was the main lyricist of the band. Geezer was on bass. And you have Ozzy. And Ozzy wasn't much of a lyricist, but he brought his haunting sound to Black Sabbath. It was based out of Birmingham, England. A couple of weeks ago, they had their last performance at Birmingham, England, because it feels like Ozzy kind of knew that the time was going to end near. Because I think he sat in chair most of the time in that performance. But he started off in Birmingham. Birmingham was a working man's town, gray, depressing. Think like Midwest. But think of the Midwest during the fall, where it's just gray skies. And think about areas like Youngstown, Ohio, where it used to be an industrial place. But, that's what Birmingham, England was. And you had two choices. You had one choice when you lived in Birmingham: work at the plant. And Ozzy and the members of Black Sabbath didn't want to do that. So when they have that dark grinding sound, it's almost like an industrial sound. It was a gray sound. It was a dark sound. And that's where we get Black Sabbath. So Black Sabbath was great. And I have to list my 3 favorite Black Sabbath songs. Number 1 is probably War Pigs. Number 2 is Iron Man. And number 3 is Paranoid. And, if you're a bigger fan of Black Sabbath, if you know the deep cuts, tell me what your favorite Black Sabbath songs were. So they were great sound, fantastic, but, they all partaked in drugs and alcohol. But Ozzy was just on another level. And they kicked him out in 1979 because even Sabbath was like, we can't do this no more, bro. You're too much. They kicked him out. And they replaced him with Ronnie James Dio. And actually, they had an album after that that did well. Ozzy was just out there. Sharon Osbourne was the daughter of Black Sabbath's original manager. And Sharon was always around. And she took on Ozzy as a client. I'm sure her dad was probably like, what are you doing? He's a mess. But Sharon took him on. They got married. He got divorced from his first wife in 82. He married Sharon in 82. And she basically tried to help clean him up. It wasn't easy. Because it took a long time before Ozzy got himself sober. A long time. He probably really didn't get sober until maybe we get to the Osbournes. But he did have a successful solo career. He was preceded in death by his guitarist Randy Rhoads, who played on songs like Crazy Train. Ozzy had as a solo act, he had Songs like No More Tears, Bark at the Moon, Mama I'm Coming Home, which is for Sharon. It's a fantastic turnaround that he had. And then he has the crazy stories, of course, about him biting the head off the bat. Now, he said he thought someone threw a bat on stage and he thought it was fake. And he bit down on it. And then he said, I knew something was wrong because something felt gooey. He said something felt gooey. And then he had to get a bunch of rabies shots because he bit the head off a bat. And then he was out of his mind one time. He was on tour with Motley Crue. And he snorted a line of ants, like ants on the ground. He snorted a line of ants. And I think he challenged Nikki Sixx to do the same thing or something like that. Even that? No, I think he snorted a line of ants. And I think he peed on the ground and then challenged Nikki Sixx to do the same thing. And Nikki Sixx and Motley Crue, man, it was Wild Boys too. It was like, nah, bruh. I ain't doing that. I want to stick to this Jack Daniels, man. Yeah, Ozzy, man, he was a mess. He was a mess, man. So it's funny now how the media is almost like, oh my God, he was so kind and cuddly. It's like, oh my God. But most of the people who's in the Ozzy now, man, they seem like the somewhat cleaned up version that we get from the Osbournes. Like, Sharon! What is saying? They getting that Ozzy, the slow down Ozzy. But man, if you know his true story, very charismatic, great voice. But man, he was a mess. Like Sharon went through a lot. Sharon went through a lot. And probably the first wife too. The first wife, as much as Sharon went through, the first wife went through a lot too. Because back then he wasn't really focused on being healthy. He just wanted to be a rock star and partying. So no, man, but the one thing I like about it, he took responsibility. He said I wasn't a great husband, a great father the first time around. And even the second time around, it took him a while to be a great husband and great father. So yeah, man, they don't make them dudes anymore. I don't think you could be a rock and roll like Ozzy Osbourne anymore. But so many blogs and think pieces and social media, I think it's virtually impossible to be Ozzy Osbourne in 2025. They'll probably call him toxic. Every time he turns around, they call him toxic rocker. Ozzy Osbourne. Oh my God, he'd be on TMZ all the time. So rest in peace, Ozzy Osbourne. Fan of, like, if you're a fan of hard rock riffs, if you're a fan of, and let's say you never heard of Black Sabbath's music, I'm sure you have, but go type in Black Sabbath, Paranoid, War Pigs, Iron Man. Go check out if you don't know his solo stuff, No More Tears, Mama I'm Coming Home, Crazy Train. He had Ozfest. Ozzy and Sharon started Ozfest. He's not one of the last rock and rolls. We still have a bunch of guys from the metal scene and hard rock that's still around. But the fact that he survived as long as he did, because I guess they did like a DNA test on him, and he has some type of mutation in his bloodstream or whatever, where he was able to just digest all those drugs and alcohol. So, like I said, he should have been dead decades ago. Him, Keith Richards. Honest to God, when you hear these stories about these dudes, especially like in the hairband era, where they just brag about drinking like Jack Daniels all the time, I'm surprised how most of these guys are still alive. I'm shocked. And they had unprotected sex, so I'm shocked. None of these guys caught HIV. Most of these dudes should be dead from alcohol poisoning or just ODing. It's amazing that a lot of these dudes are still around. But they said Ozzy's DNA, he had some type of constitution where he just absorbed as much drugs and alcohol as he wanted. It still made him a drunk and a drug addict. But at the same time, like I said, he should have been gone decades ago. So rest in peace, Ozzy. Man. Sad, man. Another Gen X icon gone. Sadly, it won't be the last one. But of all of them, he's probably the hardest rocker. Rest in peace, Prince of Darkness. Shine!